Okay, so the next part that I want to speak to you about is solutions that we have for our employers. And really, the objective behind a lot of these solutions is a couple of things. One, we want to make sure that we mitigate risk for the employer, for the member, and for Alexforbes. Okay, so that's a building premise behind what I'm going to show you. We also want to make sure that we are able to give better service to the members so that, for example, if a member claims, we can process that claim very efficiently and at the same time keep the member informed as we're processing the claim. So the member doesn't need to phone the employer or to phone Alexforbes or phone anyone to find out what's going on. At all times, the member knows where the claim is and they get a very efficient claim process. So that's another objective. We also, as you could see from Fiona's presentation, and you're going to again see when she comes up again, there's massive onerous demands on the administrator in terms of changes of legislation, changes that we have to make on our systems, changes to pretty much everything in our environment. And those changes cost huge amount of money to implement and program onto our system. But what we can't do is we can't expect to go to our clients and recover those costs from our clients. I'm going to speak about a project we ran a couple of years ago to give you an idea of the cost of some of these projects. But we don't want to have to approach the client with a fee increase every time we do something like this. Now, the only other way that we can absorb that, because it is massive outlays that we have to do, is to get greater efficiency on our side so that we have less need for human resources to process things. So that means we have to automate a lot of our processes. So we have done a lot of work to try and automate that. Which obviously helps the admin team. It helps us to reduce our fees to you, or at least keep them consistent. And at the same time, it also helps us to provide the members with better service and mitigate risk. Okay, so a lot of those themes you're going to see coming through in what I'm about to present. But before I go to all of those, I want to quickly speak about our admin system. So we've chosen to use a system called, internally it's called Kanya. It's actually a copy of it's a system that we bought from a company in the United States. The company is called FIS. They used to be called SunGuard. Their system was called Compass. We use it locally, but we've called it Kanya. We bought the system many, many years ago. I think it was 94 or something like that. We then spent a year or so localizing it, making sure it can handle our taxes and that kind of stuff before we started converting clients onto it. And we still believe it's the right system for our clients. In fact, we are busy closing one of our other systems, the Alex system, and converting those clients onto our Kanya system. For the Kanya system, because it's such a big part of our business, we have got a dedicated support team. So it's a team of about, I think they're about 7 or 8 people that are available to the admin team to help the admin teams to understand how to use the system optimally. They're also the team that looks after unit pricing, for example, because we're obviously getting unit prices from hundreds of different portfolios on a daily basis. They load those unit prices for us. They run batch jobs for us, etc. So they pretty much, almost want to call them this little mini maintenance team on the system to make sure the system is running optimally at all time. We've also got a dedicated development team. Our internal developers only do smaller developments. They don't do any major developments on the system. So if there's smaller tweaks and then efficiencies that we can get into the system, our development team would do those for us. If it's a large development, we outsource that back to FIS, the company in the States. And they do the bigger developments for us. So for example, if there are going to be big developments related to the two-part system, we will outsource that to FIS. Because the environment is changing so often and there's constant change on the system, that training team that Louisa spoke about also does training if there's changes in the system in terms of how the system needs to be used for our administrators to make sure the administrators always know how to use the system most efficiently. The system is backed up on a daily basis. So every day, roughly about 5:05, we take what we call incremental backup, and that's anything that was committed to the system during that day is then backed up into a backup tape. Well, it's no longer a tape, it's now done virtually, but that then goes off-site automatically, and there's a backup of what we did for that day should something happen. And then on a Friday, we take a full backup. So it's an absolute copy of the system taken on a Friday evening, and again, that gets backups regularly as part of our disaster recovery process. So our tier 1 applications, of which Kanya is one, we test at least on a quarterly basis to make sure that should something happen with the system and it doesn't work in this environment, we can bring it up in our backup environment. So that's tested on a regular basis to make sure that we've got resilience should something happen to the system. Because it's an international system, we also get the benefit of best practice. So the system is used extensively in the United States. Most of the clients sit in the United States. We've got a couple of large clients in South Africa. Since we took the system, we've also got Discovery using it. Liberty uses a version of the system. So there's a couple of other users locally. that's used in Australia and that's used in Europe. And all of those clients ask FIS for development on their system. And because we take an upgrade of the Kanya system to the latest version every 2 years, we automatically get all the development that was done globally for all the global clients. And we then just need to figure out how we use that to the benefit of our clients, which parts of those developments. So it's a system that's continuously refreshed by the vendor. Because it's an external vendor that we got the system from, we hold the source code for the system in an escrow agreement. So that just means that should anything ever happen to FIS, not that I think it would, company is about 38,000 members strong or employees strong, so it's a really big company in the US. But if something happens to FIS and they no longer exist or cease to exist, we effectively become the rightful owners of the Kanya system. So it's not a case of when FIS doesn't exist, we've got a problem. We then become the rightful owners and we continue running the system. But we do become 100% responsible for its maintenance in that case. And then we've got a very extensive cybersecurity framework that we put in front of the system to make sure we protect the data on the system as much as we possibly can. Anything from identity and access management, use multi-factor authentication. So when I'm logging in on my device, I have to do a MFA through Authenticator app. We've got encrypted laptops and phones. Anything that touches work is encrypted. And if I lose my laptop or if it gets stolen, the laptop can be wiped remotely. I just notify IT that my laptop's been stolen and they wipe it immediately remotely without anyone being able to access the information. There's lots of awareness campaigns. In fact, I fell victim to one of those last week. ChatGPT, they tricked me. I've been using ChatGPT and I thought the email I received was from ChatGPT, but it was our cyber team that was testing me. And I clicked on the link because I thought it was ChatGPT. So I failed that one. But there's lots of ongoing awareness and training that we have to do to make sure that we're on top of it. We've also do every 2 years what we call red team and blue team testing. Red team and blue team. Red team is what they call ethical hackers. Big oxymoron, how can a hacker be ethical? But those are hackers that come in and try and find weaknesses in our networks, in our system, etc. And then the blue team is your defensive team, so it's offensive and defensive. The blue team looks at how do they strengthen those weaknesses to make sure that we've got resilience in our environment. And then we've got a SOC, Security Operations Center, that sits in Australia that monitors our environment on a 24/7 basis. And then they're looking for any usual patterns they pick up. So if I'm suddenly transferring a huge amount of data from my laptop or emailing a big file or something like that, they immediately pick it up and they phone an IT team to say, Johnny's laptop, this is the serial number, this is what's happening, are you aware of it, is it rightful, should it happen, etc. And that's really to look for things where hackers try and come and steal data or something like that, okay? So that's monitored 24/7 and we get a good couple of calls from them on a daily basis just to say, go check this, is it legit, what's happening there, okay? As I said, we do extensive automation, and the next slide I'll speak to you about a project that we ran during COVID while most of us were sitting at home. But we've got automation on our claims processes and our billing processes, automated notification of insurers once we become aware of a death claim. There's lots of data. We use data differently from what we used in the past. It's not only the member record in the Kanya system. We now virtualize that data and actually bring different data sources together, etc. But all of this aimed at mitigating risk, improving service levels, getting greater efficiency, and giving much better service to the end customer. On claims, if I can use them as an example, what we have got the capability now, if a client submits an online claim through to us, that claim can be processed by our system without a person touching the claim. Okay, and I'll touch on that when I show you the claims module or claim solution that we got. And we've got some clients where that auto processing is as high as 77% of their claims get auto processed in, depending on timing, but can be as little as about 5 days. Okay, but I'll touch on that in a second. These slides are going to be distributed to you. So if you want to go through this in more detail and ask us any questions, you're welcome to. During COVID, so we did the planning for this in 2020, and we kicked off the project in 2021-22. But we started a project called Kalisa, and what we really did there is we went and did investigations into saying, why do members phone us? What is the reason for the phone calls? When we look at complaints, where do complaints come from? Where do our administrators spend most of their time? So effectively trying to figure out what we need to improve significantly to provide our clients a better service. Also, if we look at E&Os, where do we make mistakes and why do we make mistakes and how can we close those gaps that exist? So it gave birth to this project called Kalisa. The objectives were to reduce risk, to improve efficiency, to get better controls within our environment, and also to enhance the client experience into what members experience. There were 4 focus areas that we identified that we needed to improve on. Claims, specifically withdrawal claims. Most members are still taking cash. Also the contribution collection and allocation process. How do we get that investment done a lot quicker and accurately without the need for human intervention? And then Section 14 transfers, and we specifically focused on Section 14 transfers out from the existing fund out to a new fund. The resources, we've got a budget of 59 million, call it 60 million that we spent over the 2 years. There were 69 program or engineering staff members dedicated to the project. We had 25 subject matter experts helping us on the project. And in total, there were a total 120 project team members on this project to get it implemented. Okay. Development was about 18 months before we could start deployment. And then while we were deploying, we're still doing further enhancements. The benefits there was significant digitization. It gave birth to a new version of AF Online with much improved functionality, better integration between our admin system and the online system, greater levels of automation, reduced processing time because of lots of extensive automation that we did. And certainly we are making a lot less errors because there's a lot less human processing involved in the process. Okay. So then onto the employer solutions. So first thing I want to say to you as AF Access clients, you are going to be having to use 2 systems at the moment. There's the legacy version of AF Online, so pre-Kalisa, and the only thing you should be doing on there is accessing what we call member search. Now, member search I'll touch on in a second, but it's a solution that gives you access to the members of the retirement fund so you can see what we hold for them, what the fund credit is, etc. Everything else that you do with us as an employer should be done on the Kalisa platform. So that comes to submitting claims through to us, submitting contributions through to us, the Section 14 solution sits on there, etc. Okay. And on here, you can see at the bottom, I've given you the landing page or the login page for the 2 solutions. But please, as AF Access, never ever use legacy AF Online for claims. The claims module still exists in there because we have got some clients still using it. We are going to convert them hopefully this year. But don't only use AF Online, old AF Online for member search. Everything else must come through the digital or the Kalisa version of AF Online. Member search, start with contribution portal. So contribution portal is really the basic, the foundation of everything in admin. Okay. What's critically important, so let me speak about the solution first. It's a named user solution. So every person that needs access to the solution to be able to submit contribution schedules to Alexforbes, that person that's authorized to do it, typically a payroll person, we give them a username and a password that they log onto the platform through that secure password, and they can then load the contribution schedule through the contribution portal. Why would you want to do that? The first reason is that it gives you much better protection of that confidential data than an email does. Emails can be intercepted. And regularly are intercepted. In fact, most of the fraud we see is because of intercepted emails or where people are identity is stolen, where you pretend to be someone else in the email. So it's a lot more secure from a POPI perspective. The second reason then is what we've done is we've built automation into the process. As you load that contribution schedule, it checks the quality of the data that you've loaded to look for obvious errors. It's not yet comparing it to the data on the admin system, but it checks to say, can I use this file? So for example, if you've given me 5 new members, do I have ID numbers for those members or ID numbers or something as silly as a surname missing? And it immediately tells you of those shortcomings where the data can't be used. So you don't have to wait for administrators to look at the file to tell you that. It immediately tells you that. If there is that kind of error, you can just fix it and upload a new file. The next thing then is the email. There would be an email sent to you after you load it to confirm that you've loaded the file and we've successfully received it. The system will then attempt to transform your file into the format our Kanya system needs to be able to process it. Because of the number of funds we administer, there's roughly about 5,000, just under 5,000 employers we get contribution schedules from on a monthly basis. We couldn't accommodate every single format that we got in, but we did identify 3 common formats that we get, and we've automated those 3 common formats where they can automatically be transformed. So if your file conforms with one of those formats, the system will transform it and it'll read it into the Kanya system without a person having touched it. It will then attempt to do what we call in Kanya pre-billing. So it'll attempt to do the first reconciliation of your contributions. If you run on payroll billing, as we call it, it'll load your new members. It'll do your static detail changes, your salary detail changes. If there are exits on there, the members that are no longer contributing, it'll zeroize their salaries. So it'll do the basic changes and it'll send the administrator an email to say, I've done these changes, please go and check it. Your pre-billing reporting is available. If it can't do the automation, the automated transformation, it falls into a manual process immediately, and the administrator has to pick up the process to go and do that transformation of the file and read it into the system. We have got a couple of clients that we are seeing straight through processing on the solution already. So the file is clean enough that the system can transform it, can read it into the system, and there are no complexities in the changes being made. So the system can then say, I've done all the changes, I've done the checks on those changes, I could match the deposit made into the fund's bank account to this contribution schedule, and the amounts match, and I can run the bill. So it is possible, but it's very limited at this stage. If the administrator then checks those changes that were made, they were comfortable with that, or whatever, they've done the queries they need to do, the administrator then commits that bill to the member record. So they run the bill onto the member records, and then that produces what we call post-billing or post. It's all the reporting that goes back to the employers after we've done the contribution collection. So it tells you things about members that are not contributing, members that are maybe over free cover limit, or members that are due to retire, etc. And all of that goes back into the portal for the employer to access. Again, there's a difference between payroll billing and normal billing, so it depends on the basis in which we do your contribution collection. And every step of the way, as we progress through these milestones, the person who loaded the schedule will get an email into the inbox to tell them this bill has reached this milestone, this milestone. So continuously you're getting information and feedback as to say how we're progressing through our contribution collection process. And then the final email, once the process is finished, what you can do is if you log onto the contribution portal, there's a separate tab you can get access where you can go and get all that post-billing reporting. You can see the recon that we did, etc. Okay, so all of that sits in the contribution portal for you. Again, I stress that there's a difference between Compass Payroll, which is the one basis on which we can do contribution collection, and normal billing, which is another basis. These processes exist for the Compass Payroll, which is the majority of the bills that we do, or contribution collection. It's about 77% of the bills. The others, they don't automatically load into the portal for you, but your admin team will still be able to provide you with that data. Okay. So reasons to use it is better POPI protection, some automation, and we are going to work more on increasing the automation, lots better communication, and lots of access to information to be able to see what's going on. Incidentally, there is also a screen where you can track your bill, and tracking your bill means you can log on to see exactly how far admin is in the processing of the bill. So you don't need to phone admin to find out where the bill is. You would have received the emails, but also there's that dashboard where you can see exactly which steps have been completed and what the next steps are. Okay. I'm not going to go into the file, but critically important on contributions is the quality of the data that you share with the administrator. Okay. If your data is really brilliant, everything else in admin becomes a lot easier and you are going to experience much better service. Okay, so I cannot stress this enough. If you're not providing good data and you're getting bad service, I almost want to say it's your fault that you're getting bad service. It is really that directly linked. So make that time, invest the time to fix your contribution schedule, to give us very comprehensive data on the contribution schedule, and you will see a commensurate improvement in your service level to your members, in the amount of queries you get. Everything's going to improve. Okay, this is really the foundation of admin. So please, please, please invest the time. Section 13A has helped us. The new conduct standard has helped us a lot. Most employers are pretty much there. Some are there, some are almost there, some are still in big trouble. That has helped us. We ask for more information then, okay? So when you use the contribution portal, there's also a template available to you of what we'd actually like to receive from you. If you can adopt that, you're going to help us to make our service to you 100 times better. So please do that, okay? Cannot stress it enough, okay? It is the basis of everything. What we have done in terms of the conduct standard is that compulsory cover sheet that is now required that you have to provide to us. We've made that electronic. Unfortunately, the first month you have to fill it in manually. But from month 2, the data will be pre-populated for you. You just need to check if the content is still accurate and correct, and then you can submit, okay? But rather than having to send an additional document to us on a monthly basis, we thought it's going to be a lot easier for you if it's just on screen. As I said, unfortunately, month 1, it's a bit of an effort to get it pre-populated. Then I want to speak to you about claims. So now imagine that you are good and you do send us very good contribution data. Everything we need, from tax numbers to physical address, postal address, you're sending us banking details, you're sending us everything on the member on a monthly basis. It's all allowed in terms of POPI because we need that data to manage the member through his whole life cycle as a member of the retirement fund. So there's no POPI breach here. It's also, you're giving it to us securely through the contribution portal, so there's no risk of this file being intercepted over email. Incidentally, we find a lot of clients try and password protect a file they send over email. So my dog's name is Fluffy, not really. And I use the password Fluffy. The problem that we then encounter is a year later when the auditors want to come and audit this. I've moved on and the administrator who received that file moved on. And then we're trying to find that password and trying to find a password that two people shared amongst themselves, but it wasn't a shared secret. It was just kind of it was my dog's name or something. We often run into problems where no one knows that password for that file that we received 12 months ago. So then we've got a problem. We have to go back to the employer to say, give us a new copy of that file. So if you are going to use a password to password protect files, please do not use it when you use the contribution portal. Your file is secure. But if you do email it to us, please speak to your administrator to share with you what we call a shared secret. So our system allocates what we call a case key and a build group key. And that combination of that number is what we ask you to use as a password, because then it's got life beyond you and I. If we moved on, whoever's next in our roles can access the case key and build group key and can therefore open those files, okay? But that's only if you send it via email. If you're not sending it via email using contribution portal, please do not password protect the files. So let's go back to you giving us a really good contribution schedule. It's got everything we need on it. When you come into the online claims module, you log in. Again, it's PIN and password protected. So it's a named user. So who's allowed to submit claims to Alexforbes? We provide those users with access. That user logs on. They say, it's Johnny that I want to submit a claim form. So they get Johnny's record. They pull it up. They tell us what kind of claim. Let's say it's a withdrawal claim. And what we then do is we pre-populate all that contribution schedule data into the claim form for you. So everything is there. The only thing we don't have in the claim form, if your contributions are really good, is your payment option. Everything else is pre-populated. Why did we do that? Efficiency, because you don't have to capture it manually, which means it's a lot more efficient for you. Risk mitigation, because if some of our clients submit hundreds of claims on a monthly basis, and you've got that volume, you're trying to rush things, and if you rush things, you make mistakes. So if you had to sit and type it out, you're going to probably make some typing error somewhere, which creates risk because we're going to process the claim on that basis. By pre-populating it, you don't have to type it out. You just check if it's accurate. If it needs to change, you can change it. We're not saying you're not allowed to change it, but if you do change it, we flag that field as a changed field so that we know there's a risk attached to that field and we need to manage it differently. So let's say the claim is pre-populated, you check it, everything's 100%, there's no changes needed. All you give us is the payment option. Johnny's chosen to take cash and you submit the claim. The moment you submit the claim, that claim is registered on our workflow system as well as in our Kanya system. And the Kanya system immediately starts looking at processing that claim. While you are on the screen, incidentally, before you hit the submit button, we are doing a call to the receiver of revenue where we're checking the tax number against the ID number against the name and surname to make sure those details match what SARS has got on their side. Why do we do that? Because a lot of claim delays get caused by incorrect tax numbers being supplied in the claim process. We also do the same check with Home Affairs. So while you're typing in the claim form before you hit the submit button, we're checking with Home Affairs to say, does that ID number match Home Affairs in terms of Johnny Roo? Is that the correct data? And again, just to avoid delays in claims and make sure there's better integrity in the claim. So you've submitted the claim, it goes into the workflow system, case is created. There's an email that goes back to you with a copy of the claim form that you submitted for your records. And the system, the Kanya system receives it and it immediately starts trying to process the claim. The rules that the Kanya system applies very basically will be to say, I've received a claim today. What is the date of exit for this member? So let's use an arbitrary example. The date of exit is 31 March. Yeah, good couple of days ago. Date of exit is 31 March. Today's date is the 4th of April. So it passes that rule in that it's a past date I can process. But before I process, have I already received the March contributions? Are they in the member's record, yes or no? If the answer is no, it parks that claim and it'll do the same check tomorrow morning. If the answer is yes, it says, good, I've got contributions, I can process because the date of exit is 31 March. It then says, do I have a unit price that I can use to calculate the benefit? If it's got the unit price available, it'll calculate the benefit, it'll issue the disinvestment instruction to the investment manager, and then goes to the step to saying, I see the member's taking cash, can I do the tax application? So then it checks for, do I have addresses, do I have tax number, etc. If it's got that information, it'll actually do the tax directive request. And that all happens roughly on average about 4.5 minutes after the claim was submitted. Okay, so we've calculated the benefit, we've issued the disinvestment instruction, we've applied for tax, call it 5 minutes after the claim was submitted. That then sits there, let's say that happened now at 12 o'clock in the day, that sits there until tonight, we're at about 5:30, there's a file that goes off to the receiver of revenue with all the tax applications for the day. So any claim that we processed, we needed a directive, that gets passed to the receiver early evening. They then process overnight those directives. And if the member doesn't have tax problems, by the next morning, those files are available to us that we read into our admin system. The admin system then says, okay, the benefit was 100,000 Rand, tax is 25,000 Rand. There's no tax problems or anything. The system then will look if it's got banking details available for the member, and it'll do the payment request automatically. And based on certain parameters, we also auto-release a payment without a person having to check it if there's no changes in the process. Okay. Except that that's day 2, and the investment manager still hasn't given us the money. So because we don't have the money, we've had to build a delay into our automated claim processing. So there's a bit of a delay to allow the investment manager enough time to get the money into the fund's bank account. And then typically on day 4 is when the system is able to release that payment to the member. Okay, and that's in a clean claim where there's no outstanding issues, there's no changes in data. We get really good contribution schedules that allows us to process efficiently, etc. 100 different permutations can exist on there. For example, if that member's got a tax problem, obviously that has to be resolved before we can pay. If the claim is submitted manually rather than electronically and there's missing information, obviously we have to query that before we can process the claim. If the claim is submitted today and the member's date of exit is only the end of April, we can only start processing once we've received the April contributions. If I receive the claim today, the exit date is 31 March, but I haven't got the contributions yet, I can't process until I have the contribution. So there's lots of other permutations, but a clean claim we are able to process within 4 working days. Okay. If, again, the contribution schedule data is clean enough to help us through the process. What I do want to mention, 3 things I want to mention on claims that are critically important. The first one is to say, make sure that your date of exit matches the member's last date of contribution to the fund. So don't give us a claim form today that says the member's last date of, or date of exit is 31 March, but give us an April contribution. Okay, that's a problem. Don't give us a claim form today if the member has contributed for March saying April is the exit date, but the member does not contribute for April, because then it delays the claim. We have to query that and we have to resolve that before we can process the claim. So when you submit a claim, make sure that the date of exit on your claim form is 100% aligned to the last contribution the member made to the fund, regardless of whether it's a full month's contribution or a partial contribution. So even if I only contributed 10 out of 30 days of a month, still the exit date is the end of that month because I need those contributions in, I need that unit price before I can process. So that's critical rule number 1 on claims. The second thing I need you to be aware of is you don't need to wait till the last day of service before you submit a claim to Alexforbes. So if I give notification now that I'm leaving and I've got a payment option elected and I hand in my claim form today, but I'm only leaving the end of April, please submit that claim to us as quickly as you possibly can. Okay. The system will keep it pending, it'll keep checking, and the moment it can start processing, it'll do processing. But the earlier you process or submit the claim through to us, the more time you give us to sort out any queries that may exist on that claim, so that when we can process it at the end of April, it's an efficient claim payment process or efficient processing. So submit claims as early as you possibly can. Don't submit once the person's left. And then the last one I want you to make aware of is with retirement reform, what's also come is the option for members to leave their money in fund as a no payment option elected. So effectively a default retirement or deferred retirement. But when a member leaves your service of your company and they do not give you a payment election, you can submit the claim through to us as a no payment option. The online system makes allowance for it. What happens is the money will then automatically be saved in fund, so it'll be preserved in fund. And if the member does come forward, so let's say I left the end of March, I didn't give a payment election, you submitted the claim on the 15th of March already, it would have, at the end of March, when I do my processing, it'll change me from an active member to a deferred member, and it'll keep my savings in the fund. If I today come forward and I say I want to claim my money, I can still come and do it through the employer because our new system does allow what we call a secondary claim. If the first claim was a no payment option claim, the employer can still submit a cash claim or a preservation claim through the system. Or if you don't want them to approach you as an employer, they can come to Alexforbes directly to claim the money. Okay, so there's no impact on the member, but don't delay the claim to the extent that it becomes a null contributor and causes risk for the member in terms of not being covered for group life benefits, etc. Okay, rather submit a no claimant option. Individual claims. What we then did is we also built what we call a bulk claim solution. So the bulk claim solution was built for our clients that have got high volumes of claims. Okay, some of our clients have got in the region of about 500 to 800 claims on a monthly basis. That's one fund where there's a staff turnover of between 500 and 800 people on a monthly basis. So for those clients, we built bulk claims, because you can imagine if they had to submit individual claims through to us, it's a full-time job just to get the claim submitted, and you probably need a team of people to do it. The bulk claims is a very specific Excel file format that we need the data in. It's all the data we would need on a claim form. We recommend to the clients to write that as an extract from the payroll system. The only thing they have to put in manually is the payment option, and then you load that file through the bulk claim solution on AF Online. The bulk claim solution checks the data. If the data is clean, it'll actually generate individual claim forms for you, so you don't have to capture individual claim forms. And it'll then run the claims exactly as it would run the individual claims, okay? But you just loading the front end through bulk. So it's a massive efficiency for those employers that submit the bulk claims or high volumes of claims. It's not only for those employers, because what we saw during COVID is clients that typically had maybe 1 or 2 claims a month, if they had 1 or 2 claims a month, COVID caused problems in those companies and they had to lay off huge numbers of people. So in COVID, we actually assisted a lot of clients to do mass retrenchments through the bulk claim solution, just to give that employee efficiency and remove some pressure when they're already suffering a lot of pressure because of COVID. So it can be used once off, or it can be used specifically monthly if you want to. We often get the question, what's the limit or what's the minimum number of claims I can submit through bulk claims? We have limited it to 1. So if you've got 1 or more claims, you can use bulk claims if you choose to, or you can go individual claims. Okay. I spoke about the claims issues. Next problem we've got is when clients do use our online services, so member search, contribution portal, claims, etc., the service we are able to provide that client is a massive efficiency improvement and service level improvement, okay, where you adopt our digital services. You don't have to adopt them. You can choose to stay manual, but understand by going manual and not giving us good contribution data, you're compromising our ability to provide you with good service. When you are using AF Online, a big problem that we got is that when there's staff turnover, I leave the company, Submission's taking over from me. I've left, Submission doesn't even know about AF Online. Okay, so it's a big problem. If I know I'm going to leave and I'm an AF Online user, we're asking you to please let us know that you're going to be leaving. So you can either send an email to the AF Online employer mailbox, just to say, I'm going to be leaving, Submission's starting. Can you arrange access for him and can you remove my access? Okay. If you can do that, we can ensure continuity in the online services or the use of the online services. We can ensure that we continue to give good service to you and your members. There's a form that we've created, a digital form that we can then initiate a link to Submission where you can fill in his details and ask for access. And then we'll manage that process of terminating my access and granting Submission access seamlessly before I leave, so that there's continuity when Submission starts for him being able to use the service. Okay. The goal here must at all times be to try and make use of the digital services, because it does give you a lot better service from our side, and it also allows us to really gain some efficiency in how we service you. Okay. All of these solutions, we offer monthly training or regular training. So on the member search solution, which is really aimed at employers getting access to member records, it's effectively what a member would see if they register for AF Online. You can access that. The only thing you can't do that a member can do is you can't fill in a nomination form on behalf of the member, but apart from that, you can pretty much see and do what the member can do. So if the member doesn't have access to AF Online, you could, for example, get a copy of a fund credit statement for him from there, or a copy of his past benefit statement or whatever it is. The member search, given a basic description of what services are available on there, and I've included the link if you want to book yourself onto training as to what member search is all about. Same for digital exits, online claims, same for the contribution portal. Bulk claims, digital exits I won't speak about now. There's Section 14s. If you do have a Section 14 transfer out, that is ad hoc. We prefer to show you how to use the solution when you need it, rather than training you now and you may never need it. And then also we've launched training for members on how to use AF Online, the mobile app and USSD. And there's going to be a brochure in the email that we'll send to you that tells you if members want to book, how you get them to book onto that training to come and learn how to use these solutions optimally and what's available on there. Okay. That's the end of the employer section. So get those phones out. Just those of you that are not awake anymore, please wake up, and then let's have a look at a Menti quickly. Is there a question online, Geraldine?
A couple of questions from Brent. when will member search be integrated onto the new system? So AF Online question.
Great one. So as I said, member search exists currently in the old version of AF Online, and all other solutions sits in the Kalisa version. What we need to do is we've still got a couple of funds on our Alex system that we are busy converting onto our Kanya system, and we've still got the big Alexforbes retirement fund in Sandton that's not yet on the Kalisa system. Planning session is Thursday for the conversion of AFRF onto Kalisa. So on Thursday, we'll do the plan, and we anticipate that the conversion or take on for AFRF onto Kalisa is going to be about 3 months. So that's probably about the end of July. Only dependency then is the old clients on Alex that we're still busy converting to Kanya. But as soon as both those groups have been converted onto Kanya, then we can close the old version of AF Online and only have one version available. So at an estimate, I would say it's probably going to be early next year that we should be able in a position to combine them into one site. Okay.
Thanks, Johnny. And then on online claims, will we eventually look at doing validation of banking details at claim submission stage, similar to Home Affairs ID check? Could cut down on claim rejections at the point of payment. Maybe we could start with doing direct validation checks with the big 5 banks, Standard Bank, ABSA, FNB, Nedbank, and Capitec.
Yeah. Another great question, Brent. So we did consider it as the Kalisa project. Sorry, just to explain to everyone, what we currently do is when you submit a claim to us, we only do account holder validation when we're ready to make payment of that claim. And the reason we did it that way originally was we found that members often change banking details between the initial receipt of the claim and the final payment. So we thought that doing it at payment stage, and also back then when we first implemented account holder validation, claims took quite a while to pay. By doing it at that stage, we always made sure that we were only validating the right details that were the money was going to be paid into. As part of Kalisa, we did look at bringing it forward in the process. Unfortunately, we ran out of time in Kalisa. What we were busy doing was analysis to say how often do banking details change and what is the cost increase. Sorry, there is a fee attached to a bank account validation, which Alexforbes carries. We don't pass it on to clients. But we were trying to figure out how many accounts we would need to revalidate. Why would we need to revalidate if you've changed banking details? So I started the claim with my Standard Bank account, but by the time I pay, I want to pay into my Nedbank account. That means a dual validation. Or if the claim was delayed, let's say I had tax problems with outstanding information and the claim was delayed for 4 or 5 weeks, something I validated 3 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago is no longer valid. I can't trust it anymore. I can only trust it if I can pay the claim within a couple of days of that validation. Then we'd also have to revalidate. So we were busy doing those calculations, but we ran out of time and budget in terms of the Kalisa project. So it's probably something we will revisit in the future. Not sure when, but it is an ambition that we have is to do that account holder validation up front so that we can alert you to account problems long before we get to the payment stage.
Thanks, Johnny.